Morning, everyone. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 45 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. The committee is meeting today to hear from the Minister of Natural Resources and officials. Pursuant to Standing Order 81.5, we are considering the Supplementary Estimates B 2022-23, including Vote 1B under Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, Vote 1B under Canadian Energy Regulator, Vote 1B under Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and Votes 1B, 5B, and 10B under Department of Natural Resources. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format. Now that we've started, screenshots and photos are not permitted. And for those joining online, when we get to officials and the minister as well, you'll need to unmute yourself when speaking. When you're not speaking, please mute yourself. If you want to raise your hand, please use the raise hand function. Interpretation is available with floor, French, or English as your choices. Please address comments through the chair. And that's sort of the formalities we need to get through. So everybody knows, we have either officials in the room or online. We only have one official yet who has not done the technology check, and we'll be keeping an eye on when they join, and we'll get that when we switch out after the minister. So for the first hour, we have the Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, Minister of Natural Resources, with us. So good morning, Minister. We'll give you the floor for 5 minutes of opening statements, and as always, I'll use my handy flashcard system. Yellow means 30 seconds left. Red, time's up, but don't stop mid-sentence. And when you're ready, Minister, I'll turn it over to you. I'll start the clock for your 5-minute opening statement.
Thank you, John. Bonjour tout le monde. Je suis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm delighted to be joining you today, and I appreciate your invitation to talk about the investments this government is making to build a prosperous and clean future for the next generation, and to answer questions about the $315.9 million in expenditure requests contained in Supplementary Estimates B, including $239.6 million for new funding or initiatives.
From the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Squamish, the Musqueam, and the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations. Permettez-moi de commencer aujourd'hui.
Let me begin today by saying that I believe that Canada is uniquely positioned to take advantage of the key growth areas that will be driven by the international transition to a clean future.
Markets are increasingly pricing climate risk into investment decisions. Smart money is flowing away from assets that are not compatible with the transition to a net zero world and towards opportunities that are. Just as any successful business must be capable of interpreting and reacting to changes in the business environment, countries must also be capable of thoughtful response and action if they are to sustain and enhance their level of prosperity. It is in this context that Canada can choose to be a leader in the global economic shift, or we can let it happen to us, with all of the attendant consequences of being a late mover. As the world moves towards a lower carbon economy, a key question on which we must collectively focus is how to build on Canada's comparative advantages in a manner that will create jobs, economic opportunity, and prosperity. My job, as I see it, is to work with folks across this country to determine how best to utilize the abundance of resources, technology, and expertise that exist in this country and pursue those opportunities that will drive significant job creation and economic growth. Pour rester compétitif au niveau.
To remain competitive internationally and drive long-term economic growth, we need to think about economic opportunities at both the sectoral and regional levels.
The sectoral perspective will come from new products that enable a low-carbon future, such as critical minerals, hydrogen, electric cars and buses, battery technology, renewable energy, low-carbon building products, small modular reactors, and other clean technologies. Regionally, each province has a relatively unique mix of their own natural resources, so the economic opportunities available to them and therefore the approaches to a clean energy transition will be different across the country. What we need is a plan based on comparative advantage, one that aligns the efforts and resources of all levels of government as well as the private sector. A plan that also respects the rights and interests of Indigenous people. Such a plan must be thoughtful, collaborative, and ambitious. It must create wealth and good jobs in every region of this country, while ensuring we achieve our ambitious and necessary climate goals. I am working with provinces and territories, as well as business, labor, and Indigenous partners to establish regional energy and resource tables across the country and to establish such a plan for each region of the country. Tables have now been set up with British Columbia, Newfoundland, Labrador, Manitoba, Yukon, Northwest Territories, Prince Edward Island, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Ontario. And I look forward to soon establishing tables with Quebec, Saskatchewan, Nunavut, and Alberta. We are also currently investing in the areas we know will be part of Canada's clean energy future. Through the Fall Economic Statement, we announced significant investments in our clean technology industries. Through investment tax credits in hydrogen and other clean technologies, we are maintaining competitiveness in the face of increasing global competition. We also announced the creation of a Sustainable Jobs Training Center to bring together employers, workers, and institutions to help level up over 15,000 workers with the needed skills for building a prosperous low-carbon economy. This is in addition to investments to help create over 20,000 more union-based apprenticeships. We are also investing directly in households. Recently, we announced new support for those who currently rely on home heating oil. The $250 million oil-to-heat pump affordability grant can often be stacked with the Greener Homes grant for up to $10,000 in direct support per family to transition away from heating oil towards efficient, affordable, sustainable heat pumps. Heat pumps are a measure that reduces emissions and home heating bills while doubling as a climate adaptation solution by providing air conditioning in increasingly hot summer months. I could go on, but my time is almost up. So I will conclude by saying that the measures included in SUPS-B build on and enable many of these important initiatives. I welcome the opportunity to further discuss how my department is working across government to make life more affordable for Canadian families while fighting climate change and building a truly sustainable economy that works for everyone. So thank you very much for inviting me to join you today, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Minister. And yes, it's always a pleasure to have you here. Our first round of questions are going to be for 6 minutes each. And first up, I have Ms. Stubbs. Ms. Stubbs, over to you.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being here, and to your officials for being present here at committee. Since you just mentioned the heat pump announcement in the Fall Economic Statement, I just noticed, Minister, that there's almost $1.2 million in these estimates for the Greener Homes grant and loan programs, which you referenced. Are any of those dollars for that recently announced heat pump program?
Thank you, Ms. Stubbs, and it's a good question. So it is not included, but you can actually stack the new grants with the Greener Homes grants. So you can take the 5,000, you can stack it with 5,000 in order to actually do a broader renovation if you choose to do that.
So, okay, so I think that would confirm then that it was a very recent, potentially back of the napkin plan, and so that would make sense why it won't actually be announced until the spring. It won't help any Canadian who is having trouble figuring out how to pay their heat bills and buy groceries and pay their mortgages. And there seem to be some major problems in the program, like the concerns that insurance companies might not cover it. The overall cost to install a new system is between $10,000 and $20,000, and that the sources will still require a backup. So thanks for confirming that the program wasn't
Is there a question in there? Because I'm happy to respond to the
estimates.
Statements that you made.
Oh, no, thanks. I'm good with the statement. I'd just like to ask you about TMX. There's a line item in the estimates for about $6.5 million for, it says, quote, funding for the Trans Mountain Expansion project. And so I just wonder if you could explain, given that the Deputy Prime Minister promised that no more tax dollars would go into TMX in February 2022, what that dollar amount is in the estimates.
Sure. So it relates to, and I'm happy to have officials speak to it more fulsomely, but it relates to discharging our obligations to Indigenous peoples with respect to accommodations along the pipeline. Specifically, it's the delivery of 3 of 8 accommodation measures, which are the Terrestrial Studies Initiative, the Aquatic Habitat Restoration Fund, and the Terrestrial Cumulative Effects Initiative.
Thank you. Are you able to give...
Pardon, Monsieur le Président.
Sorry, Mr. Chairperson. We have an interpretation issue currently. The quality of sound from the Minister is perhaps not optimal, which is making interpretation difficult, apparently.
Just Ms. Stubbs, I've stopped the clock here, so we'll just do a quick test on or check on the audio quality because we want everybody to be able to follow along.
So is this better? I've now got an echo though. Okay, now it's gone.
Point of order. No product placement, please, Minister. We don't want to see that you're supporting one coffee shop over another. Just, it's my time on the Ethics Committee.
Okay, I'm listening in on the French channel, and we are getting interpretation, but that's me. We'll see. Minister, maybe if you could just say a sentence, and we'll see if it's coming through.
Sure, happy to. I am always happy to come before the committee, and I look forward to the various questions and the conversation that we will have today. Is that enough?
Okay, I've been asked if we could suspend for just a minute while we try to sort out this technical issue. So, folks, here we're going to suspend for a minute, and we'll be back in session as soon as we can get this technical issue figured out. 3 minutes and 10 seconds left in your time.
What question has-
And Minister, if you could respond slowly, let us all process the wisdom you're imparting, and we'll get through this session.
All right, sounds good.
Ready?
Yes, thank you. I was just trying to figure out where I had left off. Thanks, Chair. Yes, right now I remember. Minister, I was wondering if you could give a timeline or an update for Canadians on the progress of getting TMX into private sector ownership.
Well, I can certainly say a couple of things. It is, as you know, run by an organization that reports to the Minister of Finance, not to me. But certainly the progress on the construction continues to make good progress, and certainly the intention of the government, as we have said, is to transact to the private sector as we move towards project completion.
I guess the concern is that TMX was supposed to actually be operating in 2019. Of course, your government had frozen the application, extended the timeline, redid Indigenous consultation. The court ruled your Indigenous consultation was insufficient, not a challenge unique to your government, certainly one other governments have faced before. And then again, you gave the green light. The private sector proponent was still willing to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to try to get it built. Your government failed to provide the legal and political certainty that was required for them to go ahead and do that, so you bought it. And we're currently 3 years behind what would have been the private sector timeline for operations. So given your comments about dollars and investments flowing away from projects that, of course, your government has targeted to phase out and minimize. Do you think that's the problem? Has the government made TMX now an asset that no one wants to buy?
Oh, I don't think at all. That's not at all true. Certainly, the Indigenous consultation piece was important. It's actually the courts have helped to clarify, I think, the bar that needs to be set to achieved for projects moving forward, and that will be of use to all future governments, I think, in that context. Certainly, we would all like to see the project come to fruition. As you know, the government bought the project because of the political uncertainty that was created, in particular because of the position that was taken by the government of British Columbia. And so we have stepped up to ensure this important piece of infrastructure has been done. It is somewhat delayed, and in part because of things like COVID and the floods that happened here in British Columbia. But as you know, when we bought it, it's the same CEO who actually ran it when it was a private
sorry,
sector
Minister.
entity,
I just got a yellow
concluded
card. I'm sorry to do this. It's easier to have this rapport in person, so I'm sorry to cut you off. But I just have a quick question about LNG. Of course, in the estimates, there's no mention whatsoever of LNG. Germany, of course, came to Canada as their first choice for LNG. The Deputy Prime Minister has said that projects like LNG and other energy projects for our allies should be accelerated. Thanks, Chair. Should be accelerated, but the Prime Minister said providing energy security to our allies means an aggressive phase-out of oil and gas, which are contradictory messages. The U.S. has managed to construct 7 LNG facilities in the time that Canada's lost 25 opportunities. Germany did permit and construct their import facility in 194 days. I know that you've mentioned
Ms. Stubbs, sorry, we are over.
I know that you've mentioned working groups for exporting LNG to Europe. Is there a cost for that in the estimates, or can that be anticipated in the future?
Minister, if you could respond briefly. We are
okay.
at the end of the time, but I'll give you the chance to respond to that, and I'll add an equivalent amount of time to each of the other parties' allotment in this round.
We have been working with the Germans in particular, looking at the opportunity to be able to actually find something that fits within their window, which they want to see a product in Europe within 3 years, or they're really not interested, in part because they are aggressively moving towards hydrogen, which is something that Canada is very interested in supplying to Germany. We are working with project proponents. I would tell you that the biggest barrier actually has nothing to do with Canada. It is actually regulatory uncertainty in the United States. But those conversations continue.
Okay, thank you. And we're at the end of that round. We're going to go now to Ms. Lapointe. And Ms. Lapointe, to keep it fair here, we're going to give you 7.5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, we're very pleased to see you here today. Critical minerals and mining is not only a major contributor to Canada's economy, it is also vitally important to the people of Sudbury. So I'm sure it won't come as any surprise to you that I'm going to focus my questions today on the development of critical minerals. Minister, in this year's supplementary estimates, we can see that the funding for the development of Canada's critical minerals value chain is supporting the Critical Minerals Centre of Excellence. Can you please explain how this centre will support the Canadian mining sector?
Sure, and thank you for the question. And let me begin by thanking you for all the work you do on this file and your continued advocacy for your constituents. It's certainly, I know, very important in your riding. The Critical Minerals Centre of Excellence at Natural Resources Canada leads the development and coordination of Canada's policies and programs on critical minerals in collaboration with industry, provinces, territories, Indigenous and non-governmental organizations, and international partners. The Centre aims to advance critical mineral resources and value chains, which are essential to the energy transition. This organization plays an important role in supporting the development of our strategy, which, as some of you will recall, we've been working on for a period of time and will be announcing very shortly. One of the recommendations to establish this centre actually came out of this committee's report on critical minerals in June 2021. The centre will help prospective investors, mining operations, and others who are part of the critical minerals value chain, like clean tech, zero-emission vehicle facilities, and electric battery manufacturers. Similar to the regional energy and resource tables I noted earlier, the centre aims to navigate various regulatory environments to advance the use of Canada's critical minerals and to create a greener future for future generations.
Pardon, Monsieur le Président.
Sorry, Mr. Chairperson, we have the same sound issue occurring.
Okay, I think just if you slow it down, Minister. I was listening in the French, and we'll just slow it down or take a pause between sentences. I've stopped the clock, Ms. Lapointe. So when we get going, you'll have 4 minutes. Okay, I think Minister, ready to continue. Just go slow, and we'll get through this.
Okay.
Monsieur le Ministre,
Minister, in 2021, in your mandate letter, you were called upon to work on a strategy for critical minerals. Could you please update this committee on the status of that strategy? As you'll recall, in the budget of 2022, there was support to the tune of $3.2 billion for the implementation of the strategy. Over the last year, I've worked with the Minister of Innovation, Science and Industry to develop Canada's first strategy ever on essential minerals. I'm happy to say that Canada's strategy on essential minerals be announced publicly in a couple of days. As the world is heading towards a clean future, it's crucial that Canada be capable of supplying a green and digital economy. This strategy will help to develop resilience of the supply chain in essential minerals and position Canada as a global leader in the sustainable production of essential minerals and innovative technology indispensable to the transition to a green world. This strategy comes out of a vast, broad consultative process with stakeholders in the industry and will create thousands of good jobs, grow our economy, and make Canada a key part of the essential mineral world stage. Canada is and will always be a reliable source of essential minerals in order to address the growing global demand.
that the world wants Canada's critical minerals, but we also know that that alone is not going to secure our success, and that we need to have some investment in value chains as well. So, Minister, does the critical mineral strategy work apply to local value chains as well as global value chains?
Yes, it absolutely does. I would say at the higher level in terms of global value chains and national value chains, this represents a generational economic opportunity for Canada, all the way from extraction through minerals processing to battery manufacturing, electric vehicle manufacturing. But certainly, the answer is that this activity will support local economies and value chains, very much including in Sudbury. They essentially will be an important piece for local processing and product manufacturers, suppliers to the industry. We see this as an enormous opportunity for rural communities and smaller communities that are actually located in resource-producing areas, as well as significant opportunities for areas like Windsor and Oakville that build cars.
Monsieur le Ministre, les minéraux critiques.
Minister, critical minerals are key to the development of clean technologies such as electric vehicles and batteries that provide them energy. What role do critical minerals play to take advantage of the opportunities coming from a green shift as part of the global fight against climate change? Thank you very much again for the question. A big part of our work at NRCan is not only to ensure that our resources are mined sustainably, but also to ensure that we have a value. The internet is breaking up. The speed of the remarks is being throttled. The interpreter will attempt to resume.
Minister, if you could wait just for a second. The internet was breaking up, so we're just going to give it a second. Okay, we'll get you to continue now.
Okay.
The development of the mining sector amounts to a generational economic opportunity for Canada, for mining, until the transition is complete. Critical minerals are a key part of our economic development. We have an opportunity in our country to have most of the minerals necessary to produce batteries. We undertake to continue to work with the industry, provinces, territories, Indigenous communities to support this sector in Canada. My colleague, Minister Champagne, has made a series of announcements over recent months in the battery sector, demonstrating that Canada has the capacity not only to extract critical minerals, but also to process them into finished products.
I will cede my remaining time to my colleague, MP James Maloney.
Thank you, Ms. Lapointe. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question, Minister, to pick up on or maybe clarify something that Ms. Stubbs said. On the issue of TMX, we had a witness here on Tuesday of this week whose evidence was quite clear that without the government purchasing TMX, the project would not have gone ahead. It is a project of significant national importance. So I think maybe the question I have for you, isn't the question Ms. Stubbs asked that it would not be an asset available for purchase, or the conditions aren't right to make it an asset available for purchase? The question should properly be framed. It would not be available at all for purchase if it wasn't for the government getting involved in buying TMX and making sure the project go ahead. Would you agree with that?
I would entirely agree with that. This project would not exist had the government not made the decision, which was not one we took lightly, to purchase the asset to ensure that Canada is getting full value for its resources going forward.
Thank you, Minister.
Great, thank you. We're going to now move to Mr. Simard, who will have 7.5 minutes, and we'll try to keep it at that.
Merci, John.
Thank you very much, Sir Minister. I'll come back to the issue that my colleague Ms. Stubb just asked you about Trans Mountain. Now, when I read the statement from the Minister of Finance from May 2022, it's my understanding that there will be no longer any public funds for Trans Mountain. Now, earlier you gave my colleague an answer and said that this $6 million would be directed at Indigenous communities. Now, for me, social acceptability and mitigation measures that might be put in place to satisfy the legitimate concerns of Indigenous communities are part and parcel of the risk. Now, I don't understand that in a statement the Minister is saying that the associated risks have been mitigated and that there'll be no longer any public funds. So why is there this $6 million? Could you please explain that to me?
Oui, comme j'ai
Yes. Well, as I said, the funds in the SUPS-B budget are monies to support commitments that the government took in favour of Indigenous communities in Crown consultations on this matter. This consultative process is crucial for all projects, not only projects that we just have large investments in. And this is quite a normal state of affairs. Question. Well, that's factored into the risk profile. When you put forward a project of the size of Trans Mountain, of course one has to agree with the communities that are impacted. For example, in GNL Quebec, when they tried to implement their project, well, the onus was on them to compensate those folks impacted by their project. The buck didn't stop with the government, so I don't understand that in the case of Trans Mountain, the government has to compensate Indigenous communities. It doesn't make sense to me. This is a misuse of public funds to carry out this project to fruition. Do you agree that these funds are being used to see the Trans Mountain project through to their endpoint?
Comme j'ai dit,
As I said, this is a completely normal state of affairs for the Government of Canada to engage in endeavours with, or consultations rather, with Indigenous communities with regards to reconciliation. Minister, sorry to cut you off. I'm not against that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be reconciled with the Indigenous peoples. I'm saying this $6 million is public money, is making the Trans Mountain project possible. Now, the Minister of Finance statement did not take into account all the criteria that would normally apply to public funding. I'm not talking about reconciliation here. I'm talking about public funds that are being used on this project that is at a dead end. Well, Mr. Simard, we had discussions to protect the caribou in the region in your region, and it's exactly the same thing that applies here. Well, I'll move on to another topic, but I don't necessarily agree with you. Do you agree with Mr. Guilbeault to the extent that in 2023 there will be no longer any public funding for the gas and oil sector? Well, pursuant to my mandate letter, we continue to subsidise, we're going to cease subsidising ineffective fossil fuels by 2023. What do you mean by ineffective, sir? There's been no definition of this. So you're going to put an end to ineffective fossil fuels. I see. That's very interesting. Now, the reason I said this is that earlier, Mr. Winterhall testified before our committee, and I asked him a question to do with a statement from Mr. Guilbeault that was quite interesting. During the election campaign, he stated that there would no longer be any public direct or indirect funding or tax havens for the oil and gas sector. I asked him that question and his response surprised me. He said that in 2023 there still would be indirect support and tax havens for the gas and oil sectors. Now, is that in line with the promise, your promise, what Mr. Winterhall said? Is that in sync with the government's undertaking?
Comme j'ai dit,
As I stated, we gave an undertaking to put an end to subsidies to ineffective fossil fuels by the end of 2022 and then to phase out fossil fuels, including for federal crown corporations. Now, the undertaking to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in the oil sector, in the steel sector, these are not ineffective forms of subsidies, but any subsidies that would accelerate mining will be eliminated. And we promised that. Was Mr. Guilbeault a little too bold? Or when he stated in 2023 that there will be no longer any subsidies, was he making a mistake? It's my understanding that there will still be subsidies in 2023. Are we going to get bogged down in the definition of an effective subsidy? But in the meantime, apparently, there's going to be financial support for the fossil fuels sector. A witness said a couple of weeks ago that it's $18 billion per year in subsidies for 2021, 22, 23. That is money that the federal government is giving to the oil and gas sector directly. I can't believe that out of this $18 billion, all of those subsidies are for ineffective fossil fuels. The notion of ineffective fossil fuels is a sort of a way of getting around this and continuing to subsidise fossil fuels. When are you going to have a clear definition of what an ineffective subsidy is, please? We do have a clear definition of what ineffective subsidies are. And almost all of the ineffective subsidies in Canada are at the behest of the provinces and the territories. But we have undertaken, and as Mr. Guilbeault said, and we stand in solidarity on this issue, we will eliminate. Yes, I understand that, Minister. But if you could just close, well,
time on this one. Just so we know, Minister, we are having a slight issue, so we are going to suspend again before we go to Charlie for his 7.5 minutes. Apparently, they're going to see if we can swap out headsets for you.
Okay.
I don't know if you have. Anyway, we'll turn it over to the technical team here to just give it a minute to try and sort out the connectivity and quality issues. and we'll go to Mr. Angus, who will have his 7.5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As always, a pleasure, Minister Wilkinson, to come back to our committee. There was a lot of disappointment coming out of COP27, and many of the environmental representatives were there, came out saying that they believe that the 1.5 degree threshold is now on life support. Would that be the position of your government?
No, it would not be the position of our government. I think that there's been enormous progress made over the course of the past few years. This COP was largely an implementation COP, so I don't think there was a huge expectation of ratcheting up a lot of the targets, but I think, there was a huge move in Glasgow, and we expect that to continue going forward.
November 11th, your colleague, Minister Guilbeault, stated that if every country did their part, he hoped that heating would be limited to between 1.7 and 2.4 degrees. So was Mr. Guilbeault talking off on his own? Because that would represent at 1.7, 1.8, that represents irreversible impact to the planet. So why did he make that statement?
Well, I think he's speaking to the state of play. At Glasgow, you saw the number come down from somewhere between 2.8 and 3 down to somewhere in the mid 2s or a little bit below. I think at this COP, what they said is they saw a movement from 2.1 to 2. That's not 1.5, but that's still some modest progress. And of course, we all have to be looking to raise our level of ambition as we move forward.
Okay, I mean, I guess the question is, the concern for people is that modest progress isn't good enough right now, given the fact that if we go past 1.5, we are seeing potentially, well, we're already starting to see catastrophic impacts on communities and the planet. So I want to switch to a report that was produced by the Global Carbon Project that found that Canada was the only country in the G7 where methane and nitrous oxide emissions have risen. Have you compared what your department has with the fact that what the Europeans are saying is that our methane emissions have gone up rather than down?
Well, I would say a couple things. I mean, there are various sources of emissions in the economy of methane emissions. We've signed on to the Global Methane Pledge alongside a range of different countries that have a target for reducing methane across the economy. The primary focus for Canada has been on reducing methane from the oil and gas sector as the first step. Obviously, agriculture is more difficult. And we have made enormous progress. Both Alberta and Saskatchewan have actually basically achieved their 2025 targets already. But we need to continue to do more. Municipalities have to cap their landfills. We need to find different solutions for agriculture, et cetera. And we need to continue to push that because methane is critically important.
Killer, and we've put out $675 million, and yet we're the only country in the G7 where methane continues to rise. I would say that's a serious failure on the part of the government. I would also.
It's not in the oil and gas sector because we actually have seen significant reductions there. But of course, methane monitoring is getting better, and we are finding that methane across the world is actually a bigger challenge than many people thought.
It's a bigger challenge.
We're getting better at actually tracking it through satellites.
Better at reducing it because it keeps going up. But I'd like to switch tack. The European Emissions Database for Global Atmospheric Research said that the one hope for keeping it 1.5 is the fact that 24 countries saw significant economic growth between 2012 and 2021 and still cut their emissions, but Canada was not among them. This past year, emissions went up again after the dip during the pandemic. So how are we going to drop to 40 to 45% at 2030 if emissions are going back up again?
Well, emissions have gone down for 2 years in a row as the economy grew. But I would say to you that we need to continue to follow the plan that has been laid out. Canada has perhaps the most detailed climate plan that exists in the world that actually shows how we hit 2030 and how we put ourselves on a track to net zero by 2050. And we need to continue to implement. It's not just good enough to say you have a nice target. You've got to actually be able to implement and have a strategy as to how you're going to do it.
Absolutely agree with you. Our problem is we missed every single target we promised. We are the only country in the G7 that continues to miss. Emissions grew 3% last year after the COVID drop. So that is very concerning. And our Environment Commissioner, Jerry DeMarco, says that we are now the outlier in the G7. So it's not enough, I agree with you, to have nice targets, we have to meet them. But I want to switch tactics in my final 2 minutes. I was in Germany recently meeting with various officials about their energy crisis, and they sent a very clear message to us. They said if Canada can't supply LNG within 2 years, they're not interested in signing long-term contracts. They are interested in whether or not Canada has the potential to supply Germany's manufacturing sector with hydrogen. Has your department looked into the ability of Canada to supply hydrogen to Germany in the next 2 to 3 years?
The answer is yes. There is enormous work going on the East Coast associated with building out wind, both onshore and offshore, for the purpose of actually producing hydrogen and shipping it to Germany. There's also significant work going on in Western Canada with respect to the production of hydrogen from natural gas. Big investment with Air Products just a couple of weeks ago on one of the largest hydrogen facilities that's been built. We have an agreement with Germany under which we're looking to start shipping hydrogen from the East Coast by 2025. I totally agree with you. Germany is looking to accelerate the transition, and Canada wants to be part of that.
Interesting, because they say that the push in Europe is so strong now, according to the International Energy Agency, that we're actually going to hit peak oil in 2025, not 2030, because the push largely through the German economy to switch to hydrogen changes everything. So would you think that it would be reasonable for Canada to reassess its modeling based on what the Canada's energy regulator has, that we are going to continue to increase massive exports of oil over the next 10, 15 years, when the International Energy Agency is saying we're hitting peak oil quicker, and that there's going to start to be a major switch over to other energy sources, particularly hydrogen?
Well, certainly, Mr. Angus, I agree with you that they are looking to accelerate the shift towards hydrogen. Although, as somebody who used to be in the hydrogen business, I think it's not as simple as being able to flip a switch. And so it will be a transition that will happen over time. But yes, the Canadian Energy Regulator has been asked by me to do a 1.5 degree scenario. We have been asked them to work closely with the International Energy Agency, because that is the international body with the expertise with respect to energy issues. And you will see that coming forward over the course of the coming year.
Thank you. And then just in my final seconds, the issue of the roundtables, we're hearing from Labour that if we're talking to just transition, they want to be at the tables. They don't want to be at their own separate table. Is the government committed to a tripartite approach to make sure that Labour is sitting at each of the regional roundtables in a position to make decisions and not just be consulted?
So these tables are not federal. They are federal provincial mechanisms to engage conversations about economic opportunity going forward, and about the electricity grid and how we actually ensure we have a grid that can support the electrification of many things. There will be differences between different provinces and territories reflecting different provincial perspectives, but I would say that one of the things that the federal government is insisting on is that there is appropriate engagement with Indigenous peoples as well as with labor and industry.
Okay, we need to stop there. So now we'll go into the second round, and that's going to be 2 5-minute, 2 2.5-minute, 2 5 minutes, and we'll finish at that point. I'll ask people to stay within the allotted times for this one. And first up for 5 minutes, we have Mr. Patzer.
Thank you much, Chair. Thank you for coming, Minister. I'm just going to start with a quick question. Can you let me know what the definition that you use for rural is?
Definition of, sorry?
Rural. Like, how do you define what a rural community is?
Well, I think Statistics Canada is probably in a better position than I, but certainly there are obviously large urban centers. There are smaller cities, including many in your province, like Yorkton and Melville, and then there are rural areas that are primarily agriculturally based. But if you want a specific definition, I think you're probably better to go to Statistics Canada.
Would you agree, though, that a rural economy then is a lot different than an urban economy?
Oh, I think a rural economy in many respects is going to be different from an urban economy, yes.
Okay. And I'm just trying to gauge that you understand the impact of what a rural community means to the national economy. I'm looking at through the lens of the Just Transition, Minister. There's I think it's about $4.8 million in the subs towards Just Transition. Now it goes down through the development agencies, but I'm just wondering, what's your department's plan to administer the Just Transition?
Okay, so let me start by saying I think, have some appreciation for a rural economy. I grew up in the same province that you did, and I worked for the Premier of Saskatchewan. So I've spent a lot of time in rural Saskatchewan and in rural Western Canada. And I would say that the just transition is important across the piece. I actually met with the mayor and a number of folks from Coronac to talk about the whole issue around the coal-fired power plants just a couple of weeks ago. It is extremely important that we are not leaving communities behind as we move through this energy transition. But I would say that the opportunities for all of us, whether urban or rural, are enormous if we're smart and thoughtful and seize those very opportunities.
Okay, did you read the Auditor General's report? The Environment Commissioner's report on the just transition, how it's going so far?
I have read the Environment Commissioner's report, yes.
Okay, one thing that stood out to me was there was a portion that basically alluded to 2 years of nothing being done on the file because of COVID. I like to think that the department could walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm just wondering, these communities, they're not getting those 2 years added on the back end of the timeline here. So what's going to be done to make up for those 2 years that were lost?
Well, and I think you're talking primarily at this stage about coal-dependent communities. And I actually did a roundtable with labor folks when I was actually in Regina just a few weeks ago. And certainly I agree with you, there's a lot of concern there. There were money set aside for a whole range of issues, including economic development. Those continue on through the next year or so. But I do think that there is a conversation that needs to be had about how we're actually going to address this, because many of those coal-fired facilities and the coal mines don't actually shut down until 2030. So I'm not in disagreement with you that there's a conversation that needs to be had.
Right. I mean, just as a side, the carbon tax might force some of these places to shut down a lot quicker because the cost of running them is just going rampant. The commissioner also concluded that in the absence of a federal approach for a just transition, the agencies did not adequately design programs and benefits to support the transition. So just quickly here, what's the new plan? Is there a concrete plan now, or are you working on one? Just kind of wondering where that's at.
We are working on one very actively right now, and we hope to bring forward what we call a Sustainable Jobs Action Plan or the Just Transition Action Plan sometime early in the new year.
Okay, I look forward to seeing that. Your mandate letter says you're going to create economic opportunities for all of these communities. So you alluded to Coronac. There's also Rock Glen. There's Willow Bunch. They've got their economic modeling that for what they want to do for their communities. There's been a lot of stonewalling as far as trying to get the funding out so they could actually get on the development, actually getting their new modeling physically going, right? It's been a lot of studies and consultations, but not a lot of actual getting the work done now to give them the opportunity to start building this model. So just is this legislation going to allow these communities to get that certainty starting as soon as possible, really, to get started?
Well, certainly, as I say, we're going to bring forward an updated plan early next year. But I would say that there has been funding that have flowed to many of those communities through PrairieScan, the regional agency. And certainly there are some of them like Coronac, which is very interested in a coal gasification technology that is looking for engagement with the federal government. And my department is talking with them. Although the last time I was in Regina, I was told that they actually believe they've now found private sector sources of capital to be able to actually move that forward. But we are engaged in that conversation, and we're open and interested in all economic opportunities.
So, excuse me, says Mr. Simard.
To Mr. Shahal, who will have 5 minutes on the clock.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for joining us today. Minister, to ensure that we achieve our goal of net zero, we must invest in and accelerate the decarbonization of major industries, while also investing in clean technology.
We have some issues still, Mr. Chairperson, interpretation-wise.
Okay, just a second here. Okay, Mr. Shahal, if you can just slow down the pace of your question so our staff can keep up. Okay, so back to you, and we'll continue.
Minister, to ensure that we achieve our goal of net zero, we must invest in and accelerate the decarbonization of major industries while also investing in clean technologies. Alberta, my home province, is leading in both clean tech and in renewable energy investments. I was happy to hear about your $800 million announcement last month for 60 projects under the Clean Fuel Fund. That being said, I would like to talk about the Net Zero Accelerator Program. In this year's supplementary estimates, we see a transfer from NRCan to ISED for this program. Can you speak to the importance of this program in our fight against climate change?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question, and certainly thank you for the work that you do each and every day in the beautiful province of Alberta. Through the Net Zero Accelerator Initiative and with additional funding that was announced in Budget 2021, we're investing $8 billion to accelerate decarbonization of large emitting sectors and focusing on the transition to cleaner technologies across the piece. People often think this is primarily focused on the oil and gas sector. It is one area, but certainly another area is steel manufacturing, where we have been working to implement electric arc furnaces. We know that this program is crucial to Canada's efforts to meet net zero and our global leadership by meeting our ambitious GHG reduction targets. We announced just recently $300 million for the Air Products hydrogen facility in Edmonton. We announced recently $27 million with E3 Lithium, which is a really interesting lithium company extracting it from brines. NRCan is the lead federal department on energy and natural resources. We play an essential role in the implementation of the Net Zero Accelerator. I would just say the fight against climate change requires an all-hands-on-deck approach. The Net Zero Accelerator is a real clear example of how different departments can work together to help us to achieve those goals.
Thank you for that. The development of hydrogen, especially green hydrogen, will be crucial, not only to reduce our emissions at home, but also to position Canada as a world leader in terms of clean energy production. Minister, how are you ensuring the development of the sector and how Alberta could become a leader in the hydrogen sector?
So I would start by saying, I noticed you said the word green. I really don't like the colors green, blue, purple, turquoise. I think we should be talking about carbon intensity because it's carbon emissions that are driving climate change. And in that context, I think Alberta has enormous opportunities with respect to hydrogen. It certainly is the center of renewable energy development in this country, by far the fastest growth in renewable energy. And that is certainly something that can be used to produce electricity, which can also be used to produce hydrogen. But there's also pathways through which you can actually use the natural gas resources that Alberta has in abundance to produce ultra-low carbon hydrogen, assuming that you actually address upstream methane emissions and you actually capture the carbon through the production process. We have developed a hydrogen strategy. We are focused very much on driving forward with hydrogen as a major opportunity for many parts of this country. We have MOUs with Germany, with the European Union, with the Netherlands. It certainly is an area of critical focus, and I would say it's an enormous area of opportunity for Alberta.
Minister, as an Albertan MP, my job is to ensure that workers from Alberta can thrive in the economy of tomorrow. In a recent poll made by CBC News and The Road Ahead, it was revealed that 59% of respondents said that they thought transitioning away from oil and gas would benefit Alberta's economy in the long run. How are we ensuring that today's energy workers have the tools they need for the economy of tomorrow?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to start by understanding that the huge opportunities that exist, whether it's hydrogen or it's biofuels or it's carbon capture and sequestration, it's the development of small modular reactors, it's the development of critical minerals and associated processing, often are going to use the very same skills that people in the energy sector have today. A biofuels refinery or a hydrogen production plant doesn't look a lot different from a refinery. But we also have to be ensuring that we are providing the appropriate supports on a go-forward basis to ensure that people, if they do need to make a transition with respect to skills, that we are there to actually support and help them to do that. So there's kind of two pieces to this. There's the regional economic tables where we're working with provinces and territories to really seize those opportunities. But we're also developing the just transition or sustainable jobs approach to ensure that we are absolutely committed to ensuring that communities and workers are actually part of the success of driving towards a low carbon future.
And with that, we're out of time on this one. We're going to go to Mr. Simard now for 2.5 minutes.
Merci.
Thank you very much, John. Sorry to be insisting on this, Minister, but you intimated earlier in the response you gave me to a question regarding the definition of an ineffective subsidy. But on the 16th of November, the Deputy Minister repeated what was repeated previously at the Environment Committee in May, and that is that there will be no definition before 2023. Do you have that definition at hand, or is it the Deputy Minister who got mixed up at the time regarding the definition of an ineffective subsidy?
J'ai dit que
I said that there are some elements that are clear. It is clear that incentives to accelerate production and mining of fossil fuels how should I put this?
Aux combustibles fossiles. Mais
I see, says Mr. Simard. Well, listen, I just want to... I looked at a table that was part of a report from the Environment Committee, which stated that one measure for the normal treatment for the industry did not amount to a subsidy. What is the normal treatment for the gas and oil sector per se, please? Could you define that?
je n'étais pas un membre.
I wasn't a member of that committee, but what I can say is that we have already eliminated 9 incentives, which are taxes on the sector, and we've promised to eliminate ineffective subsidies. I'm sorry, I'm running out of time, Minister. Sorry. Listen, you talked about the small modular reactors earlier, and I'd like to ask you a quick question about that. I read an article that stated that the gas and oil sector requested the replacement of gas by the use of small modular reactors, and there's $1.6 million for NSERC.
Les petits réacteurs.
Now, is that a subsidy of the gas and oil sector? Is it a form of subsidy, given that they asked for it?
Minister, and then we'll move to our next
Les
question.
petits réacteurs.
The small modular reactors are a technology that some companies have developed, and there are a lot of applications, not just for the oil sector. It is a way of generating electricity, which is interesting for a lot of provinces and territories that don't have hydroelectricity.
Thank you. Now to Mr. Angus for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Minister. The Joe Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, the American IRA, not the Irish IRA, has been called a game changer. And we heard that it's really shaken up forestry, Indigenous development, mining, energy in Canada. And one of the key elements that Biden has stated from when he first went to COP was that he was going to build a new economy that he said were going to be based on, quote, good paying union jobs. And we never heard that language from the Prime Minister on commitments. In the fall economic statement, we heard that there are labor standards now that the government is tying to tax credits. How important is it, do you think, that Canada make sure that we match what in the IRA and make sure that we have a commitment to good paying union jobs as a way of building a new clean energy economy?
I think it's very important that we move forward in the direction that you're talking about, Mr. Angus. You saw certainly more than a nod in that direction in the fall economic statement. We've said that there will need to be more that needs to be done to respond to the Inflation Reduction Act, which I think everybody should welcome. It was 6 years it took for the Americans to actually get to the point where they were making moves with respect to addressing the climate issue. We're very happy they've done it, but we do need to respond in some areas where they've actually gone beyond, from a tax perspective, what we have done. And I do think that as we bring forward the Sustainable Jobs Action Plan, that the kind of language that you're talking about will be very important.
I certainly think it is extraordinary. This is the first time in well over a generation we've seen a government in the United States lead forward with a clear vision. What we heard in our meetings with Alberta Federation of Labour, the IBW, the operating engineers, Unifor Western Canada, steelworkers, boilermakers, and also certainly Unifor in the auto plants, is that we need an industrial job strategy that is going to drive the clean energy economy. Would you agree that this is where we need to go at the federal level in Canada?
I not only agree with you, Mr. Angus, we're actually endeavoring to put that into place. There are, at the end of the day, any strategy relies on comparative advantage, and Canada has a number of those. That means you need a critical mineral strategy, you need a hydrogen strategy, you need a biofuel strategy, you need a strategy with respect to things like small modular reactors. And collectively, those are the key underpinnings of a broader industrial strategy. Part of that is national, and part of that actually is regional, which these regional tables are essentially about developing place-based economic strategies to ensure that Alberta succeeds and that Nova Scotia succeeds, almost certainly in different areas.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we're out of time there. We're going to go now to Mr. Dreeshen for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you very much. And Mr. Chair, you and I attended OSCE meetings in the UK this summer where, of course, food security, energy security, and, of course, Russia's invasion of Ukraine was uppermost of the minds of the parliamentarians that were there. And, of course, Mr. Minister, although European politicians might have disagreed on the solutions, certainly the urgency was never questioned. And so to that end, my question relates to Canada's ability to engage globally in the quest to get ethically produced hydrocarbons to those countries that are desperately seeking our natural resources. It does seem as though we have more or less said, well, we won't worry about oil and gas, but we will take a push on some of the new technologies. And, of course, since we've handcuffed ourselves, I don't think we have much of a choice. There's also that nagging question if the Prime Minister and your ministry now recognizes the business case for LNG to Europe and Asia. I know that was one of the things that had been stated. And, of course, there was no pushback from your government when the Biden administration arbitrarily canceled Keystone XL, but now, of course, U.S. refineries are being filled with Venezuelan crude. So I'm trying to find out just where you think Canada fits in this. I've read your mandate letter. I was on environment before. I don't really see much difference between the mandate letter from environment, the mandate letter from natural resources. Perhaps I'll have to go to the industry mandate letter to see whether or not there's going to be something that speaks to actually the strengths that we have here in a country. Could you comment on where you feel that we are at this point in time and how we're going to become the global player that we so proudly have been for decades?
Thank you, Mr. Dreeshen, for the question. I would say that I've spent an enormous amount of time with our European colleagues and in Europe, and certainly we have endeavored to do everything we can to support them, including expanding oil and gas production this year by 300,000 barrels a day, alongside our American friends doing likewise, and we are on track to actually achieve that. We certainly continue to look at the issue of export to Germany of liquid natural gas from the East Coast. But I would tell you that the economics are more challenging because of the distances. There are ways potentially to go around that, but the biggest barrier, as I said before, is the American regulatory system and the challenges there. But look, Canada has enormous opportunities to be the clean energy supplier to the world. That includes very much through this transition, oil and gas, and eventually hydrogen derived from oil and gas. And we certainly are very focused on that. But the fundamental underpinning in that is, in order to be relevant in the context of a transition that is going on, we need to be driving down emissions from the oil and gas sector just as every other sector. It is in the economic interest of the sector, and if you talk to the Pathways folks, they would agree with that.
And of course we have been, and that's my point, is that we've been leading the globe for decades as far as environmental impact and making sure that we are the least impactful in the world. So that's my point. Of course, you mentioned concerns about U.S. policy, but of course we just heard earlier, I think you were talking about the dozens of LNG projects that we see there, and how we've canceled so many, and they're able to get them going. So I don't quite see how this U.S. Regulatory regime has been causing us these major issues. The other thing I'd like to say, the American Defense Department's initiative to invest in Canada's critical minerals seems to be a bit of a head-scratcher on the sovereignty front. I think if this suggestion had materialized during the previous administration, perhaps it wouldn't have been quite as well received. Do you really believe that that is something that is positive for us? Because or are they the only game in town after we scare away other investors?
Let me just start by saying, Mr. Dreesen, with due respect, that just because you say something doesn't make it true. And Canada, with respect to heavy oil, is about middle of the pack in terms of carbon emissions. It has the opportunity to be the best in the world, but we need to actually work together to drive down carbon emissions, not just say that we're the best. And that's exactly what we're doing with the Pathways folks.
Yeah.
What I would say on the critical minerals piece is it is an enormous economic opportunity. It is a generational economic opportunity for Canada. We need to ensure that we are developing those. We certainly are working with our trusted partners, very much including the United States. We welcome U.S. investment in Canada, just as we welcome Australian and British investment. But at the end of the day, Canada needs to ensure that it is benefiting in a significant way, and we are going to ensure that that is the case.
Okay, I'd like to speak to you about
Mr. Dreesen, we're out of time on this one. That's the 5 minutes. It goes fast. Yeah, and now finally we're going to go to Mr. Sobera for his the final 5 minutes in this round.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome, Minister. If you are in beautiful North Vancouver, I think I'm not too sure if it's still snowing there, but I hope traffic has come back to normal. Your testimony so far today dealing with how Canada is, I would say, uniquely positioned in the transition that is undergoing in the world global energy supply. We've obviously seen in the last couple of days, we've seen the announcement how Qatar is playing a strategic role in supplying LNG not only to Germany but to other countries, but the German announcement was coming. But on the front with our relationship with Germany has been hydrogen. And I know you have spent a lot of time and a lot of resources, I would say intellectually, understanding hydrogen and how much of an opportunity it is for the Canadian economy. I do wish to ask about the Canada Growth Fund, other measures we put in place in terms of the Clean Growth Fund, I should say, in terms of how we as a country, but we as an economy, can benefit from our position in the production of hydrogen.
So I think that hydrogen is one of those opportunities where many parts of this country have an opportunity to benefit, both hydrogen derived from renewables through electrolysis, but also hydrogen derived from natural gas in an ultra-low carbon way. There are many applications right now where people use gas effectively to produce hydrogen in industrial processes. Going straight to hydrogen, there's a massive market that exists today, but certainly a whole range of applications around heavy-duty trucking and home heating and a range of other things are going to actually use hydrogen as we move into the future. And we are working very actively with the Europeans on the one hand with respect to the East Coast. We are working very actively with the Japanese and the South Koreans and others on the West Coast because people, many of these economies do not have the ability to actually produce hydrogen themselves, and they are going to be looking for a stable, reliable partner like Canada.
And my second question refers to, we've had the recent announcement, and obviously I do wish to flag the great collaboration that's going on between yourself and Minister Champagne over innovation. We've had the recent announcement where General Motors and Vail have come to an agreement where the mine in the province of Quebec will supply Vail, that is run by Vail, will supply General Motors with nickel. And within the sphere of the transition that is going on, I believe as an economist, I love to use the word comparative advantage. I believe Canada has a comparative advantage in a number of resource sectors, but within the resource sector, the mineral sectors. And how is our government, and that was the first announcement, the indication of where we're going to be going with this, but how can we effectively as a government support the development of a mineral strategy that frankly utilizes our comparative advantage and within that framework becomes the key supplier for many of these minerals that will be utilized in this transition?
So it's a great question, Mr. Sobera, and I would say, given your background, it's one that you would understand very well. in past, people have accused Canada of being the hewers of wood and the drawers of water. We have to ensure that we're a lot smarter about how we actually utilize these kinds of resources going forward. Critical minerals are absolutely key to the energy transition. You cannot have an energy transition without significantly more in the way of critical minerals of various types. Canada has those resources in abundance. We need to be focused on how we actually extract them in an environmentally sustainable way in partnership with Indigenous communities, but then how we build the processing facilities, how we build the battery plants, how we build the electric vehicle plants that are so important in Ontario. And that is absolutely the work that Minister Champagne and I have been focused on. As I said, within the next few days, I will be launching Canada's critical mineral strategy, which is a fundamental underpinning to this broader conversation. I would also say, in terms of comparative advantage, because you're exactly right, you can build on the existence of the resources in terms of comparative advantage, but it's also the fact that Canada has a grid that's over 80% clean, like emissions free. And that's another reason for battery manufacturers and electric vehicle manufacturers to locate in Canada, to be able to have products that are almost zero carbon.
Thank you, Minister. Wishing you a wonderful day. Thank you, John.
Okay, we've reached the end of that time. And so, Minister, I'd like to thank you for your time today here, for sharing your thoughts on the Supplementary Estimates B. And with that, we'll let you continue on with your day, and we'll move to the continuation of this panel with the officials. Now, we have one tech check that we need to do briefly, so I'm going to suspend just for a minute while we do that, and then we'll come back in and continue with the third round of questions. And we've had about 6 minutes so far in suspension. And we need about 10 minutes at the end of the meeting to conclude the formal part of the votes for the Supplementary Estimates B. So I'm going to suggest that with officials we go till about 5:02, and then we'll go into the concluding part of the meeting. If we need to go a couple minutes after, does that work, Mr. Angus?
Yeah, being that some of us have to prepare for question period, and our whips are going to be calling us out at 1. I think, can we call that back?
If you want them, yeah, I can end the questions somewhere between 1:45 and 10:02.
Yep.
Okay, so here, let's suspend for a minute, get this last tech check done quickly, and then we'll move right back into the questions with the officials. We're suspended. Mr. Dreeshen, and you will have 5 minutes on the clock for your first round.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and to the officials, thank you for being there. I guess the first question that I have, since I had asked the minister the question about heavy oil, Venezuelan oil, and that, I was unsure. The minister said that I was inaccurate. I'm just wondering what the measurements are for Venezuelan heavy crude versus Canadian heavy crude, because that's what I was talking about. Do you have those numbers?
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry I don't have those numbers handy, but we could provide that to you in writing.
Thank you. I was just trying to, I know that I had been chastised by the minister, but I had perhaps just wanted to make that particular point. I guess one of the concerns that I have, and of course there's money that has been set aside for Indigenous discussions and so on in the SUPs, and sadly one of the things that we see is that many of our investors, of course, the Indigenous people of Canada, are just hitting their stride as far as engagement in oil and gas is concerned, and that's where their history is. I mean, in the last 20, 30 years, there's been amazing work that has been done in that area, and so whether it's oil and gas or whether it's mining, in the territories, there's some amazing business people that are there. And they're looking at opportunities. But it does seem as though it's only going to be an opportunity if they follow the path of this government. And that, I think, is perhaps a bit of a concern. So my concern is on the stranded assets that we might be anticipating as billions of dollars get put into projects and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under them. So what do you see as a backstop for some of these companies, and I'll just speak to Indigenous companies that find that after all of the efforts that they've put in, that there no longer is a market because we have chosen to go a different direction?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. We certainly would see huge opportunities to advance economic reconciliation through natural resources. It's already a critical aspect of the economic lives of an awful lot of Indigenous peoples across the country. And for that reason, our policies are framed often with a view to Indigenous reconciliation. So I take the example of critical minerals, as you mentioned. We are very mindful of the fact that economic opportunity for Indigenous communities is one of the critical aspects of the development of these resources. And that's entirely consistent with seeking to address these matters as strategic assets for the country and advance policy goals through doing so.
I believe it is. We had Calvin Heelan here, who is certainly a great advocate for his community, and basically what he had indicated is they're tired of the eco-colonialism that is going on. Different groups saying, we know what is best for you, so get out of, we're going to be there to help you, and we're going to make sure that you do it the right way, which is our way. And yet their expertise is saying, let's move forward. And we know this is a global problem. We know this is a global concern. And we are there with the skills to be able to move it forward. So there's always this other story that comes back to say, you know what, well, maybe we'll sell TMX to some Indigenous group. Well, unless they're going to sell it for $21 billion or whatever it happens to be when the final comes there, then there's going to be another group that's going to say, you know what, you just got through subsidizing, this enterprise that has now bought TMX. So there's never an end. And that's the problem anytime you've got government that decides that it's going to get engaged in major projects like this. So I'm just concerned about where the future is. And then to go back to what I had mentioned earlier to the minister, we see what is happening in Europe. And we can always talk about, yes, but they would like to have some hydrogen and they would like to see us progress. The fact that we've cut ourselves off at the knees and we're not there to help them now, I mean, that's, you can't undo that. But the Europeans, their industry is falling apart. We have got farmers that are being told that you've got yourself 3 greenhouses. Pick which one you're going to keep, and so that's going to encourage a lot of difficult decisions. So anyway, I thank you very much, and appreciate your time here.
My apologies. I should have introduced our officials who are with us. So before we go into the next round of questions, briefly with us we have in person Deputy Minister John Hannaford. Welcome. Associate Deputy Minister for Natural Resources Canada, Molly Johnson, and Assistant Deputy Minister, Corporate Management and Services Sector, Chief Financial Officer Shirley Carruthers. So welcome. Online today we have Aaron O'Brien, Assistant Deputy Minister, Fuel Sector, Debbie Scarf, Assistant Deputy Minister, Energy System Sector, Jeff Labonte, Assistant Deputy Minister, Lands and Mineral Sector, Glenn Hargrove, Assistant Deputy Minister, Canadian Forest Service, Drew Leyburn, Assistant Deputy Minister, Energy Efficiency and Technology Sector, Frank DeRosier, Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic Policy and Innovation Office, and finally Angie Bruce, Assistant Deputy Minister, Nukwekwashak. And that is our panel today, and I hope I got most of those right. And if I didn't, you can correct me when you get a chance to take the floor. We're going to go now to Mr. Maloney, who will have 5 minutes for his questions here.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses for being here. I'm going to focus my questions on nuclear energy for the most part, but I'm going to start with the estimates, which of course is the reason we're here. There's two components to the supplementary B estimates dealing with that area. One is the $450,000 to the Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, and then there's a transfer of $4.9 million to the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission. Can you just give us a brief overview of where this money is going to go and what organizations are going to benefit from it, for starters?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So take a step back. Nuclear is very likely to be a pretty critical aspect of our energy mix as we are looking at an increase of demands on our electrical grid, perhaps twice to three times the current demands by 2050. Government has taken a series of steps to support the development of this technology. You mentioned the support to the CNSC. That is in part to reinforce the centrality of the CNSC as a world-class regulatory body. One of the great assets we have right now is recognized expertise with respect to not only the technology but also the regulatory environment, which is critical, obviously, to the safety and operation of these facilities. Government has also, though, taken steps to announce support for principally small modular reactor technologies. In the last period of time, the Canadian Infrastructure Bank is supporting the development of the Darlington site, where $900 and some odd million have been put towards a 300 megawatt demonstration operation of SMR technology. But there's also support that's being provided more generally to CNSC. There was a $50 million announcement with respect to support of our regulatory regime, which will go to CNSC in order to develop some of the regulatory tools that will be necessary to ensure safe operation of the technology. In addition, we've been investing through the Strategic Innovation Fund to support specific applications.
Okay, thank you. My next question was going to be what steps have been taken to support the small modular reactors. So I'll move on from that then. So it is a critical part of our clean energy strategy going forward. Everybody recognizes that. As much as we disagree on this committee and elsewhere, there are areas where there isn't a lot of space between the parties, and I think this is one of them. So my question is, given the importance of this, and it's recognized by the federal government and most, if not all, of the provinces, where does Canada stand on the small modular reactor stage compared to other countries around the world?
Just made in the Darlington plant does put us in a leadership role internationally. There are a number of different international players who are focusing on this technology as one with real potential, but we have real assets strategically with respect to nuclear generally and with respect to this technology development. And I mentioned the Strategic Innovation Fund, where we've made specific investments in some of the technologies that show real promise. And there again, those can contribute not only to the sort of support of our electrical grids, but also to some of our remote communities and providing the possibility for them to move to cleaner, low-emitting energy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Because, we heard the minister say Canada has enormous opportunity to be the clean energy supplier to the world, and this is obviously one of those areas. But I'm going to move on to another aspect of nuclear energy, and that's in the health field. In my riding, I have an organization called Kinetrix, who's in partnership with Bruce Power and a French company working on medical isotopes. And it's done through the CANDU nuclear process. I went down and visited Bruce Power this summer. It's a private sector initiative, but it needs a little nudge and support from the from the governments, and I think the federal government has stepped up on that. So can you give us examples of, maybe use that as an example, but other examples where the federal government has helped the private sector sort of push that ball down the field?
To be clear, specifically with respect to isotopes or with respect to nuclear technology?
Sure, let's
generally?
deal with isotopes, sure.
Well, Canada's had a significant role with respect to the provision of isotopes internationally. We have, through a variety of different operations, provided isotopes into global demand. I will maybe turn to my colleague, Debbie Scharf, just on any specifics she wishes to flag with respect to isotopes.
Yes, thanks, Deputy. And everyone can hear me? Fantastic. So the Deputy is right. We have been a key player in this field in the past, but right now we work internationally with other partners to maintain a supply chain for the types of isotopes that we need in Canada for use in cancer treatments, sterilizing medical devices, diagnostic procedures, the treatment of food and consumer products. The lead for maintaining that supply chain in Canada is the Department of Health, or Health Canada, at the federal level, making sure that that isotope supply is available to all who need it for all of those applications. The Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, the CNSC, does play a role in licensing as part of their regulatory functions the types of reactors that could produce isotopes if that was something that Canada wanted to do again. And you are absolutely right. The ISED does have, through its Strategic Innovation Fund, the ability to fund R&D and commercialization, which could include a variety of different areas, including nuclear innovations.
Sorry,
so those are some of the things.
Yeah, I'm going to have to jump in. We're out of time on this one. And Ms. Scharf, my apologies. I had missed the ever-important H in your name when your introduction. So thank you for those comments. We're going to go now to Monsieur Simard, who will have 2.5 minutes for his questions.
Merci. Thank you very much, John. Mr. Deputy Minister, I don't know if you're aware, it's very difficult for the forestry sector to get assistance from the federal government. The only assistance, IDEC Canada, can't support companies from the forestry sector that conduct initial and secondary processing. This is transferred to global affairs that say no automatically because of conflicts of commercial conflicts with the United States. So the only lever they have is the ETIF program. And apparently all the witnesses that I've and stakeholders that I've consulted say that it's underfunded, and they don't even make applications to ITIF because they know that they're going to have them knocked back. Do you have any data about the number of applications under the ITIF program, the numbers that are accepted and the number that are knocked back?
I'll ask my colleague to respond.
Thank you for the question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have the data on the number of programs here, but we are able to get back to you on that.
Mais à votre...
Well, to your knowledge, just is it 3/4 of the applications that are denied because of a lack of funding? Would you know off the top of your head? These are statistics that I've heard. Over 3/4 of the applications are knocked back because the program is underfunded. Does that ring a bell?
Our ADM of the Canadian Forest Service, Glenn Hargrove, to speak to that.
Certainly. Thanks, Deputy. Mr. Chair, so I don't have the exact numbers for the what we might term oversubscription of the program. It certainly is a very, very popular and productive program. We do receive more applications than we can fund. The program...
Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, I don't have much time. Just very quickly, if I may, $11 million is for... I know that a certain amount of that was given to New Brunswick. Do you know how that $11 million was being broken down for that particular beetle?
We're out of time, but if you have a brief response, we can take that before we move to our next question.
I apologize, I missed the end of it. Was that for the spruce budworm or the mountain pine beetle?
Est-ce que vous avez une ventilation?
Do you have a breakdown of where that $11 million was allocated in past years? Most of that money went to New Brunswick.
Mr. Angus, over to you for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Well, it's very clear with the United States going into high gear in terms of a clean tech economy, it puts a lot of pressure on Canada, and we have to have at every level a real coherent strategy and also collaboration. So at the federal level, NRCan has to deal internationally, but then you have to deal with all the different provinces and their different various political focuses. I want to focus on that because this morning I was in the news. One of the top stories was about the launch of a Calgary Clean Tech program, and they said that the only thing people were talking about at Calgary at this Clean Tech launch was the uncertainty caused by Danielle Smith and her Sovereignty Act, and that it was actually threatening to scare business out of Alberta. The Deborah Yedlin, who's president of the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, said there is, quote, no shred of evidence that this act will lead to economic growth. We see this as introducing a very significant element of risk and uncertainty for business in Alberta. So I certainly don't want to have you comment on the political machinations of Premier Smith, but I would ask you, how important is it for the federal government working with the various provinces if we're going to be trying to supply clean tech and compete with the Americans, that we are doing this in a framework of a shared goal, shared values, and a shared vision?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I would say that that's very much the intention of the regional table approach that the minister described in his comments. And it's significantly because of the scale of the challenge that we are facing. In order for us to meet the challenges of the climate crisis, the challenges that are posed by some of our geopolitical realities, a concerted effort between the federal government and the provinces is really very important, and we have a real opportunity right now.
Okay. I want to stay on that then, because I guess my concern about the regional tables, when I heard from the ministry, said, well, these are provincial setups. Like in Calgary, when Labour was at the table, they were only talking to Labour. They were not talking to everyone else. We need to make sure that these tables include Indigenous and Labour in a big way, and not just have Danielle Smith decide who gets to sit at the table and who doesn't. That would not help anybody. I think we could all agree on that would probably be a really bad outcome. So how do we insist that there's some clear strings attached to make sure Labour, Indigenous, clean tech, and innovators are at the tables at the regional levels?
And I'd say we're out of time here, but we'll take a brief response.
Well, I think the minister said that these are federal and provincial tables, and so the intention of the tables, and they will vary from province to province, but the intention is to draw on the sort of the breadth of the communities that are at issue, the jurisdictions that are at issue, and so that will absolutely include Labour, it will absolutely include Indigenous communities and private sector and other experts.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go now to Mr. Falk, who will have 5 minutes for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the officials for being here in person today, to Mr. Hannaford, Ms. Johnson, and Mrs. Crothers. Thank you. I think that's important, and I think we need to move back to in-person meetings. Just want to get that on the record and show my appreciation for your effort. I want to start off by asking you about a $4.5 million expense in the estimates for reallocation of some acquisition of additions to real estate. Can you explain what that would be for?
I will turn to my CFO.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for the question. Can you hear me actually? Is my mic on? Yeah. Yeah. And so that adjustment that we made was actually to help us to prepare for the future of work. And so we did make some acquisitions just in terms of cleaning up, for example, some additional air conditioners and whatnot in some of our facilities where that was broken, in particular in some of our laboratories.
Very good. That's actually very exciting to hear that. I thought perhaps maybe it was for some geothermal installations in some of our federal buildings, but not quite. Okay. Turning to the TMX project, I have a few questions with that. Initially, the project was bought from Kinder Morgan for $4.5 billion with a projected expansion cost of $3 billion. That project has increased now to $21 billion. That's a 500% increase in construction costs. I have a very intimate knowledge of the construction industry, especially the heavy construction industry. the costs have not gone up 500%. Can you help me understand where that additional cost is coming in?
I'll turn to my colleague in a minute, but I'd say a couple of things with respect to TMX. We have the progress with respect to the construction of TMX obviously was affected by the COVID pandemic and by some of the other conditions that occurred in BC in particular during the last period of time. So floods and fires also had an effect on the construction pace. But the construction has continued. We're at around 70% completion right now, and the projection is that this will be completed by Q3 of the next year. And so this has proceeded. I'll maybe turn to Angie Bruce if she wishes to add anything.
No, Deputy, I think that that describes exactly it. The only other thing I might add to that is that it also includes the extreme weather events. So the flooding and the wildfires that took place in BC did impact the construction as well.
I appreciate that answer, but a 500% increase, like that's very significant to move from a $3 billion anticipated project cost to $16 billion. Like, yeah, some adverse weather, okay, I understand that, but and carbon tax, I understand that. Fuel is expensive now. It's probably increased by 10-15% over the cost of what they had anticipated, but that's not 500%. Somewhere there's a lot of money that's gone missing.
Sorry, is there a question?
Where's the money? Yeah, that would be the question.
Mr. Chair, I would just say that this has been a very significant piece of construction. It is a very large installation that's occurred. It's happened over a period of time. The work continues. It's come up against some challenges by virtue of the challenges that we all faced in the world. But the work does continue. We're 72% complete.
And I appreciate that. But could I ask you to provide the committee with a breakdown of the budget, the anticipated costs initially, and where that has changed?
Yes.
Good. I appreciate that. Another question. We've heard quite a bit here about missed opportunities and how the Americans have really ramped up a lot of their natural resource development and projects and have taken advantage of markets that are out there today which may not be there in the future. We know that we've missed some critical LNG projects. And we've actually been probably a little bit too late to the show to make a difference there. So my question is, what is your department doing to assist natural resource development projects in getting to market in a quick way that they can take advantage of market opportunities?
Mr. Chair, we're very mindful of the challenges of energy security internationally. Certainly the last year has brought home how significant these challenges can be, including for some of our closest allies. Within the next 3 years, it's projected that LNG Canada 1 will be online. That's 14 megatons per annum that would be now available to the global market off of our west coast.
If you want to finish your thought, you can do that, and then we'll move to the final question.
We also, though, as an immediate matter, did work with the provinces and with industry to increase the production that would happen this year with a view to trying to address the challenges of energy security. So this is an ongoing dialogue and is something we're very mindful of.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And for the final 5 minutes, we have Mr. Bruce, who will take the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I wanted to follow up on some of the different questions that we've had actually about methane a little bit earlier today. And it's a part that I was kind of excited that just about a month ago, one of our Canadian satellite companies that is tracking methane leaks from space using satellite technology was able to participate through COP27 in highlighting methane leaks around the world. So they found some from coal plants, for example. But one of them that they also found was from a waste treatment plant in Terrebonne just back in November. So it's a company called GHGSat. They're based in Montreal. And I think that they show how some of the cutting edge technologies that we're developing here in Canada are helping to track down methane and from different sources than people might normally think of as sources for methane. And when I was looking through the SUPS-B, I saw that there was funding for I'm looking down here to find the right line, Canadian Data Receiving Infrastructure for the Space-Based Earth Observation Network. And I was just wondering if maybe, thinking about that piece of funding, you can highlight some of the Canadian technologies that we're helping to support and develop on methane emissions.
Yeah, I'll maybe refer that then to my colleague. I believe this would be Frank.
Thank you, Deputy. So it is actually one area where NRCan and Canada are truly world leaders around Earth observation. We do apply it to a range of domains, whether it's flood, forest fires, movement of icebergs, emergency responses. Methane emission is also one of those domains where we do operate. The satellite imagery that we collect using satellite from RadarSat don't tend to specialize toward methane emissions, and that's why we rely on third-party providers like GHGSat who are using their own satellite system. They've launched actually quite a few of them over the past year. So we're using this data along with other data sets from other US and European providers to be able to track any such emissions.
Thank you. I appreciate that, just as giving me a little bit of background on that piece. I'm going to shift to someone else. So sorry, I think you're off the hot seat for the parts about satellites, because I wanted to talk a little bit about green construction and what we are doing to advance innovations on that. Just about a couple of meetings ago, we had someone come to speak about the role of forestry in green buildings and about tall timber constructions and its role in green buildings. I was wondering, and I believe this would, well, anyway, I won't direct it to anyone specifically. You'll let me know who's the right person. But if I can get a little bit more about what we're doing to build innovation in green buildings.
I'll turn to my colleague, Drew Laybourne. No?
Yes. Thank you, Chair. This is an area that NRCan has been very active on in recent years, working with partners around the federal family, the National Research Council, and others. And as you know, there are a number of different materials that we consider when we talk about green buildings. Engineered wood products, obviously NRCan has a deep interest in that, and my colleague Glenn Hargrove could probably speak to that. But we do know that the embedded carbon in the materials we build these buildings with is a crucial part of getting to net zero. It's not just the heating systems and the appliances and the other things that consume energy. It's also the carbon that's baked into the way we build and dispose of buildings over time. So we have work happening in the CanMet Energy Labs to look at building envelopes and materials and how they can be reduced. And we also announced recently that we would be working on a low carbon building materials innovation hub, working across the federal family to push this science even further.
Great. I don't know if Mr. Hargrove had anything to add specifically about the tall timber and forestry piece.
Certainly. Thank you. Happy to. So you'll also notice that there's the Green Construction Through Wood program, which was originally announced in Budget 2017 under the Pan-Canadian Framework on climate change. And so this program aims at reducing the carbon footprint of construction in Canada and increasing use of wood in non-traditional construction applications. So to date, that program is committed to supporting 16 demonstration projects. And so these include things like high-rise buildings and low-rise non-residential buildings and timber bridges, those sorts of things, those sorts of non-traditional uses. So one example would be the 10-story Limberlost Place tall wood building at George Brown College, and 3 mass timber buildings on the Canadian Nuclear Laboratories campus. So that will become the first nuclear campus to use wood as a structural building material. So these sorts of initiatives really help to increase the use of wood in these non-traditional applications and thereby also reduce the embodied carbon in buildings, as Drew alluded to.
Okay, I'm going to have to jump in there. We're out of time. So I would like to thank all of the officials for joining us both in person and online today. And before we let you go, I do have one question for the members. We are going to be voting momentarily on the SUPS-B. And there were some items that were asked for from officials during the course of the meeting today. Because we'll be voting, the information would be for information only. And so the question is, do you still want our clerk to follow up with the items that were requested to be sent back and circulated? Okay, so we'll follow up with officials for the items that were requested, and if you could get that information back to us as quickly as you can, that would be helpful. Ideally, we'd like to have it back before we break for Christmas, and get it translated and circulated would be really helpful. So thank you to all of you for being here, for joining us today. If you'd like to leave in person or drop off online, you're more than welcome to do that. For the members, I now have the question to ask if we have unanimous consent to vote the supplementary items in one motion, or do you want to do them on division? Okay, so all in one on division. Okay, so the motion is, we do that? Or we're good?
We can make it clear.
Okay, we'll make it clear. Shall vote 1B under Atomic Energy of Canada Unite, or let's start again. Shall vote 1B under Atomic Energy of Canada Limited, vote 1B under Canadian Energy Regulator, vote 1B under Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and votes 1B, 5B, and 10B under Department of Natural Resources carry.
On division.
Okay, on division. Perfect. And shall I report the votes on the supplementary estimates B 2022-23 to the House? Okay, we're good. And with that, folks, we've concluded today's study of supplementary estimates B 2022-23. Right now, we're scheduled to have our next meeting on December 6th to start reviewing the draft report for the study of creating a fair and equitable Canadian energy transformation, if it can be distributed with sufficient time for members to review beforehand. So I'll be looking to see if we have it tomorrow, or if we can get it out first thing on Monday. If it's beyond about noon on Monday, then we'll likely have to cancel the Tuesday meeting. So we'll see how quickly we can get that to you. So watch for the notice of motion, or notice of meeting that we'll get out at some point on Monday. And watch for the draft reports, and look forward to seeing everybody. Have a safe weekend. And with that, meeting adjourned.